Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Seth with SethPerla.com. I hope you're having an awesome day. I have a video here for you today in response to an email I got from a mother where she's asking about how do I light his fire? How do I light my son's fire? He's not motivated. And I like this metaphor because fire reminds me of energy. You need a lot of energy to get the fire going. And when you don't have motivation to do certain things, there's no energy to do those things. So let me read the email to you and then I'll move on from there. It reads, "Hello, Seth. I have an 11-year-old son in 6th grade. He's a 2E type boy, which means twice exceptional. I'll talk about that in just a moment. He's in a gifted program since 3rd grade, but he's also on a 504. So he's gifted and talented, but he also is on a 504 for probably some disability of some sort. So gifted, but disabled in a way. So he's struggling with something. He may have ADHD, Asperger's, who knows. Which is not motivated. He is not motivated by much of anything. When he wants to, he can do great work, but only when he wants. Can you relate to that? And it's never clear what motivates the uptick in more attention to his work. Sometimes it's the subject matter. That's a very important point. When kids are engaged in the subject matter and they're doing something that matters to them, that they enjoy, that they like, that makes it easier to be motivated. As he definitely has his passions. He's very much an out-of-the-box thinker. He's been this way since he was a toddler, not even motivated by potty training stickers or treats. How can I help to, quote, light his fire without grand bargains? So how can I motivate him without having to convince him and bribe him to do things? At this point, I sound like a broken record. Have a great day. Remember, neat and complete. Part of the problem surely rests with my ability to handle this issue. Arg, help. By the way, his twin sister is highly self-motivated. She gets straight A's because of her strong work ethic and did not qualify for GT, which is fine by us. We have never and will never compare the two. They have very different learning styles and outlooks. We also do not put a premium on letter grades, which is good because I don't believe letter grades are even moral. I think letter grades are wrong. They're archaic. They need to be done away with, and we need to do something much more effective than letter grades. But on doing the best they can, which is really good, Courtney, because you want to reward your children for their effort, not for the result of their effort. You always want to encourage them with the process. Notice what they're doing right with their effort and with the process, how hard they actually are trying. It just comes out differently for each of the children. So crazy. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd make my son's work output and motivation reflect the visions he's articulated for himself in the future. He's in love with the Air Force Academy, and at this point, he wants to be an engineer or a pilot. He's got big dreams, and of course, as a parent, I just want him to be happy pursuing something he loves. Good. Keep your eye on the prize. That's where it's at, Courtney. Just want him to be happy pursuing something he loves. That is the key. Okay. Thank you from Courtney. All right, here we go. So, I'm going to give you some insight on how to light a fire. I'm going to give you some background, and then I'm going to make a second video talking to you about some of the solutions to this issue. Okay? So I will be as brief as I can, but I will make these as powerful as I possibly can for you. First of all, let's talk a little bit about what 2E is. 2E means twice exceptional. Gifted and talented, that's an exceptionality. If you're gifted, you have an exceptional ability in some area. But if you have a 504, you have a disability in some area. So this kiddo's got both of these things going on. Don't worry if your kid is not identified as gifted or doesn't have a 504, and your kid is a more typical kid who's struggling. This video will still apply to you, and I'll show you exactly why in just a moment. Gifted kids tend to develop very asynchronously. However, all kids develop asynchronously. Here's what this means. This is a very, 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 very important concept for parents to understand. The standardization movement would have you believe that all kids are supposed to grow and develop at similar rates in similar areas. So, for example, perhaps 3rd graders should know their multiplication tables and should learn to write cursive. For example, 5th and 6th graders should become pretty good at writing a 5-paragraph essay, on and on and on, right? So there are these benchmarks, these kids that are in the middle of the bell curve that represent standard places that they should be. And I am not a fan of this because kids develop asynchronously, and gifted and talented kids develop very asynchronously, and 2E kids develop super asynchronously. They are all over the place. Let me explain a little bit more to you about this. I like the metaphor of a stereo equalizer. Do you remember the stereo equalizers from the 1980s when you put in a cassette tape and you had an EQ that was about this big and you had to adjust all the different frequencies? Well, imagine that a metric that you look at with a kid is a different frequency. And the standardization movement would have you believe that all frequencies should be at the same level. So if you are in, let's say, 10th grade, you should be, let's say, here in all these different areas. One might be math, science, social studies, reading, writing, social, emotional. You could have tons of different metrics. What do we look at with standardized tests? Math, because it's very easy to quantify. Reading, because they can do bubble tests to show their reading ability, supposedly, with, anyhow, I'm not going to go there right now. And writing, where they use a rubric to evaluate a kid's writing ability, right? Those are the general things that we're looking at. But there are tons of metrics you can look at when you look at a kid. You can look at creativity, you can look at math computation, you can also look at math concepts. A lot of kids are very asynchronous in terms of they learn math concepts very well, but their calculation may be atrocious. They may be in high school, but still not have basic math facts down, yet they're able to do geometry and algebra, but they miss details because they miss a lot of math facts, for example. Or they may be a 6th grader, but their handwriting is like a kindergartner because their fine motor hasn't caught up yet their ideas that they could be writing about are phenomenal, but they can't get it out because of their fine motor or what have you. So there's all different levels that kids can be at in different metrics. And again, the 2E kids are going to be like super asynchronous. They're going to be off the charts in both directions in different areas. Okay, so first you need to understand that kids are not standardized lines that can be moved up on a slider and you can say, he's at 5th. Wow, great, you're standard, awesome. I love you because you're so average. Like, okay, you're in 6th, great, we want them to be all over the place. That's what makes them unique. That's what makes them amazing. We want to look at their strengths and help them build their strengths because those are the things they're going to use in their future. However, we have a problem. When you have a kid like this, the one that Courtney's mentioning, and he can't motivate himself to do things that need to be done, perhaps the class is boring, perhaps the teacher is completely boring, unengaging, perhaps the subject matter is boring and uninteresting to him. The teacher has to make this stuff really come alive, and when teachers are given this curriculum to regurgitate, it often can be very difficult. There's this guy named Renzulli, big name in the gifted world. He says that if you want to have a gifted behavior, and it doesn't matter if you're 2E, if you're GT, or whatever, for anybody, if you want to have a gifted behavior, he says, don't worry so much about giftedness. Are you a gifted person? Forget that concept. You want to have gifted behaviors because in the areas that you want to develop, for example, if this kid wants to be a pilot, he needs to learn to have gifted behaviors in his area of passion. Well, you need a few things. You need above average ability in some area. You need creativity to approach how you're doing whatever you're doing. And you need what's called task commitment. When you have all three of these, you have what he calls a gifted behavior. However, this kiddo does not have task commitment. He does not have the ability to follow through or to self-start or to do his work or to get his homework in or to get his homework done or to do his projects or to do his readings or to write his papers or whatever it is. He's not, quote, motivated. He's procrastinating. He's avoiding. He's resisting. Get the picture? This kid can't figure out task commitment. He can't figure out how to motivate, how to do the things he needs to do. He's not going to be able to achieve his dreams. And this is the real deal. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is your kid's life. If we can't figure out how to get them to commit to tasks that they don't want to do, and I'm not saying that all homework or schoolwork or anything is even valuable. There's a lot of it that is busy work, that is useless, that is meaningless, and I wish the system would change. But they do need to learn how to commit, and we need to figure out how to help them along this road. okay? So how do we do that in a sane way? What motivates and demotivates? So briefly, what demotivates kids, there's a lot of things that will demotivate. One can be overwhelming sensory things that are going on that we don't even know are going on. They're having these experiences where the world can be very intense for a lot of kids with sensory issues. They may have trouble attending. That can be unmotivating. Again, school can be boring or unengaging or uninteresting. The work that they're being asked to do could be busy work, could be meaningless. There are lots of things that could be demotivating. Well, what motivates us? Well, when our brain gets excited and we have this flood of chemicals in our brain that says, yeah, this is awesome, this is fun, this is good. Well, that's motivating. So how do we do that? Not usually by sitting in desks listening to lectures, okay? What motivates us is doing things that are engaging, doing things that are meaningful, doing things that matter, doing things that we're passionate about, that we're curious about. So doing things that we're talented at, doing things that are fun. So how do we motivate these kids to do this? Well, this is a very tough question. So I'm going to talk about two more things, and then I'm going to stop the video and start another one to talk about some solutions. First, I want to mention that Courtney said something to the effect that part of the problem might lie in her ability to handle these issues. I'm really glad you said that, because one of the most important things a parent can do, or a teacher for that matter, in order to help kids is do your own deep inner work. Get your own therapist, get your own counselor, get family counseling, get couples counseling. This is what very healthy people do, this all the time, okay? There's no shame in it. This is a good thing, okay? Get a professional who will help you to work through your own, it could be childhood issues, your old traumas, your old things that have you stuck, things that are sort of in the periphery or things that are in the background of your mind that have influenced the decisions you've made in your life. Really work on yourself. That's one of the best things that you can do. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Yes, part of it is probably you, how we deal with it, how we react, how we engage our kids, how we push their buttons, how they push our buttons, how reactive we are. And how we get our nervous systems as adults really uptight, and that shows them that there's something to be fearful of. And this is on a brain level, and I'm not going to get into the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and fight, flight, or freeze and all that in this video, but you doing your work will help your ability to deal with this stuff, parents. So that's one thing I want to mention. And then finally, I want to get to some solutions, and I'll get to this in the next video in just a moment. So when you have this kid, these complicated kids who are all over the place, but they have a problem, one of their biggest problems on these metrics is their ability, if you were to look at task commitment, if your child is unmotivated and they're at the lower end of the bell curve in motivation and they're not willing or able to do what needs to be done in school, that can really hurt them not only in school but also in creating a future where they're able to follow their passions. So I'll see you in just a minute with the next video talking about some strategies on how I deal with that. See you in a second.